Which will be over soon.
It will? Rack it up. Cyanide, 2008 cyanide treatment regulations, responsibility transferred to the CUPAs. Woohoo! So we have it now. August 2008, there were changes. All consent orders were rescinded by the DTSC. New regulations added to Chapter 45, Article 1 concerning cyanide. New PBR treatment page form must be submitted to the CUPAs because remember the consent orders went away, so they were closed. So you didn't have any authorization. You had to apply under PBR, on-site tiered permit flowchart revised and corrected.
DTSC has a very nice cyanide webpage. And it gives you great information, generator requirements, flowchart, pollution prevention, additional guidance, links to other resources. Very, very good detailed website. DTSC did a fine job on this. And I know everybody in back can read this. I can't. Describes the program, has copies of the notification forms, has copies of all the fact sheets, linked to the regulations. If only this was done for everything. They got a lot of web pages. Regulations, best management practices, which is one of the regulatory requirements for PBR. Other issues, talks about recycling, land disposal restriction. So anybody doing cyanide treatment really ought to avail themselves of this the website from DTSC because it gives a pile of information. So they may be calling you folks, and you're like, I just have this spiral-bound book that the Steve Show gave us, and it's kind of light. Well, go to DTSC's website, and it's very professional in contrast. All right, so the regulations, 67450.11d in Title 22, goes through a number of things, including what's applicable, what waste streams, the processes, the required best management practices that the facility has to have in place, and certain other process-related restrictions and allowances. In terms of applicability, basically the treatment's not regulated by RCRA, and I forget why.
Because typically it goes to a POTW. Anything
right.
goes to a POTW regardless. Remember the reactive and extremely hazardous California definition's not federal.
Right. It's hazardous because it has cyanide. Makes no difference if it has metals in it. It's being treated by one of the listed processes in the flow chart or in the regulations. Treatment's been conducted in tanks or containers, which means they can't treat in a lined pond. Has to be in a tank or container. Operators in compliance with the best management practices. So again, you're going to be looking at the generating process, at their waste handling process, not just looking at the forms in the treatment system itself. And of course, any discharges to the air have to comply with applicable Cal OSHA regulations and pollution control. You're doing your inspection. If you're thinking everybody in the joint's eating almonds, there's an issue there.
All right, eligible waste streams must be an aqueous waste, can have up to 1% suspended solids. The aqueous waste from rinsing fixtures and pieces, equipment, containers, pumps, hoses. Aqueous waste by reverse osmosis or ion exchange. Aqueous waste generated by labs doing analysis and/or testing. Think more. Aqueous waste generated by the following on-site recycling activities. Rinsing spent anode bags that they put the anodes in. They need to clean those bags so they can reuse them by rinsing them, but the rinsate's going to be hazardous. Rinsing empty containers prior to on-site reuse. That goes to the empty container. Spent process solutions if managed by electrowinning, if managed as specified in 67450.11d6. And the solutions were diluted per this section here.
A lot of detailed requirements for cyanide. So, if you're inspecting a cyanide treatment shop, you're going to be looking at a fair amount of detail of the process. Wouldn't you also be querying the facility personnel just to kind of get their, get a sense of their knowledge of this? This is hazardous stuff. You know, so that's
Well,
you.
That's me. That
No,
looks
that's
like me. Eligible treatment processes, oxidation by addition of hypochlorite, probably one of the most common methods used out there. Oxidation by addition of peroxide or ozone, alkaline chlorination, ion exchange, reverse osmosis, and electrowinning.
Electrowinning or electrowinning?
This is whining here, but
Electrowinning. It's electrowinning.
they do. This is what they do up north in Sonoma. But these are the methods that you can use. Oh, you cut it. You went to the next one.
That's right. Those are the methods that they could use. You know, and these are the best management practices. So again, you're going to be asking them to, you know, demonstrate that. You know, obviously you could look and see the holding racks and the boards. You know, you could look at the flow in the system. You know, it's relatively new, but you could say, well, when you know, tell me about your cyanide process evaluation process. When do you guys get together to take a look at your operation? And when do you look at alternatives to cyanides? You know, and so forth. Now, a lot of circuit board shops and a lot of platers, as they, you know, hopefully as they do more and more business, some of the business they're going to do is in the European Union, and the EU has the REACH program. Canada has the WHOIS program to reduce the amount of, it's sort of green chemistry for the foreigners, you know, and it's actually working. So you may see a lot more of the alternative evaluations, and you're going to be looking at training records and, of course, verifying training.
Oh, look, we have electrowinning of spent solutions. Spent process solutions containing recoverable amounts of metals may be treated by electrowinning. That's basically where they're using electricity to recover the metals. They have value. Incidental treatment of cyanide contained in the spent solution by electrowinning is also authorized. So if you're doing incidental treatment while trying to recycle that metal, that's allowed. Electrowinning, well, we talked about it.
You know, dilution can be the solution, a certain pollution. You know, the spent cyanide, you know, if there's process solutions that have some residual cyanide in it, they can be treated by slow addition to the rinseiates. What the heck?
That was late when you were home.
Yeah, I think I had refreshed myself. Anyway, by slow addition to the rinsate, basically you're diluting the cyanide to make it more amenable to treatment without so much of an occupational or environmental hazard. And again, there's certain restrictions on the treatment process, and there's certain additional requirements that are in there. So that's cyanide. Any questions on the devil's cyanide?
Steve, do you think they'd update our unified permit to include it on their permit conditions? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. Your form should reflect the cyanide on it. We updated all our forms. You know, you have to have the current flow chart, and you got to have the current forms, because the old forms don't have the cyanide sections.
So the consolidated permit that you issue to the company has these conditions on it?
Yeah. Not the conditions.
No. It'll just say, you know, permit by rule or tiered permit on the permit that they.
Yeah, but when you get to the forms have been updated. If you don't have the new forms, because it does have all these conditions on the forms. All right, so now we're on to treatment.
Treatment units. Remember, there's now, okay, in the tiered permitting world, right, remember, is it a waste? Is it hazardous? Am I treating it? Is the treatment I'm doing regulated or exempt? If it's regulated, is it allowable under one of the tiers? Which tier do I fall under? Now we're done with that. Now it's time to fill out the forms, right? Remember, big funnel, getting all this data, doing all this stuff until you actually sit down with the pencil and paper and you knock out the form in like 5 minutes. Really is what that is. It's all the data collection and analysis and determination before that. All right, so now we're at the point where we need to fill out the forms, but you have to know how many units you have, how many treatment units, because it's 1 unit per form. So what's a unit? Why did they take that off the ear? All right, what's a treatment unit? No,
No, but
no, not in reality. It will not impact the number of EPA ID numbers you have unless one unit is connected to another unit going down a public access way or down a public highway. And you ain't never going to do that. They may be in different parts of the room, maybe in different parts of the facility all plumbed together, but you're not going to have two different EPA ID numbers for it. For permitting unit purposes? Do they get it in writing? Good luck with that. If you get it in writing, email it over to us because that'd be kind of fun to look at.
No, they're
not on this planet. No.
yeah. None of this stuff we're talking about relates to EPID numbers.
Yeah, but a unit, I mean, there could be different units, and each one would fall under a separate tiered permit process. They're taking a picture.
Wasn't staged.
Not at all. See, we could have been holding our flasks. That would have been
worse.
Yes, it would have. All right. Anyway, so what's a treatment unit? It is
Located together.
Right.
And
used in sequence. Treats one or more compatible hazardous waste streams, and they're plumbed together or otherwise linked. When you're evaluating, and if all they're doing is acid-base neutralization, that's going to be like one tank with a pipe going in, pipe going out, and somebody with a bag of neutralizers standing above it, right? So you may not need to see a process flow diagram for that. But what if it's a much more complicated system, one that likely falls under PBR, where they may be doing flocculation, neutralization, ion exchange, oxidation or reduction? It's very, very helpful to look at a process flow diagram because it's the process flow diagram that's going to help you determine how many treatment units do they have. And as we're going to see in a couple of examples coming up, depending on how many of what units they have doing what, that will change the tier, or that will change the permit tier that somebody may fall under, the way that you combine them. So that's also a good, useful tool that you can use. Plus, you're going to walk down that process when you go on site. Okay, and if what you see is different than what's on that process flow diagram, there's an issue.
All right, so let's look at some examples of these. We've got a chrome 6 waste going for chrome reduction, and then it's going to go over here for a flocculation. But at that point, we're going to add in zinc. So this is going over, and then pH adjustment. At this time, a spent cleaning acid is added, and then it's going down for POTW discharge. The solids are probably going out this way. So
how many units?
Well, we got containers, tanks. They're in series. They're in sequence, right?
You kind of walk it. You take your finger, or when you have it up on the wall, you walk it with your body, right? You're going, okay, I have a waste. It's getting, waste. It's going in, getting treated in a tank. Now it's being combined with something else. Now it's being treated. Now it's being combined with something else as it's being treated, and then it's going out. That's in sequence. How do you know these are how do you know these are located together? They're on the same slide. You go to the facility and you look, right? So they're used in sequence. And of course, hopefully they're plumbed or piped together. But, again, you verify that. Now, how many of you guys say this is one treatment unit? How many of you guys say it's two? Three. Excellent. It's one treatment unit.
So
right?
even
they treat, they mix, they treat, they mix, they treat, they mix.
Right. It's all flowing in series. Waste are coming in, treatment. Waste are coming in, treatment.
Right. That's weird standing here.
Listening to yourself talk.
That's just creepy. All right, unit number 2. I got to move. Unit number 2. You have hex chrome coming in. They reduce it. You have a spent Vlasic pickle juice that has some zinc in it, going through a neutralization tank. That waste stream is combined. Then they're flocculating, coagulating it, pH adjusted when some other acid stuff is mixed in there, and it goes out. How many units? Really? Why? Really? 2 units? Of course 2 units. Be firm in your convictions. And certainly don't listen to some moron in a bowling shirt with a hula girl. Anyway, yeah, because you're treating. Oh wait, they're waste being treated, then you're combining it, right? There's 2 units here. They're not in sequence.
That's not me.
Oh yeah, it's not in sequence. So can you split out the units here? How would you package the units to benefit and get into lower tiers? Is this 1 unit and all these are 1 unit? Does that make sense? Well, chrome reduction, that could be 1 unit. And now if you take this out of the picture, separate unit. All right? You put it in, you treat, you combine, you treat, you combine, you treat, and it goes out. Pull the chrome out, pull the chrome reduction out. Now this whole system could also be 1 unit. What about pulling the zinc out? This is 1 unit. Now this then becomes the 1 unit, and this is the 2nd unit. You could do both. And what the facility ought to be doing and what you could guide them on is they take both scenarios and they see, hey, am I in, conditional authorized for one, PBR for another? Or am I in conditional authorization for both? Probably not. Or am I in conditional exemption for one, PBR for the other? Hey, that would be better. So you can do that if it makes sense. Hope that's not the Lotto Commission calling me, telling me. All right, how about another? Oh, now it's getting a little bit more complicated, but it's the same kind of thing, right? You have 2 waste streams going in. It's treated, settles out, goes out to the filter press. You decant, and it's going out. How many units? Could you split out this? Well, could you do that? Well, not the TSDF, but could this be 1 unit and this another one?
Yeah.
Sure. How about doing that? Yeah, you could do that too. I'm trying to think what my potential issue was here. Oh yeah, I know what the potential issue was. Anybody see a potential issue? Look at the names in the boxes. You take a look at the previous one, right? Chrome reduction, neutralization, coagulation, pH adjustment. Chrome reduction, flocculation, precipitation. Filtering, settling, pH adjusting, flocking, surge tank. Wait, is surge tank a treatment term? Could that be a treatment tank? Maybe. Why could it be, potentially? You're mixing 2 different waste streams. What's happening chemically and physically with those waste streams? So when you look at the process flow chart, hopefully they're going to be tagging some names onto these things. And you say, wait, surge tank, wait a second. What's happening in there? Same thing when you look at the previous example, right? You have a neutralized solution going in with a reduced chrome solution. Then there's another treatment operation. What's happening in this little intersection here? Potentially, yeah. So when you look at when the facility looks at sampling, they're going to want to know chemically, physically, what's happening here. When that neutralized zinc waste stream gets T-boned into the chrome stream. If they're just 2 dilute metals reduced solutions that's not really changing the hazard, not doing anything but just adding additional volume, then that combination is fine. But if that chrome reduction, if any of the other treatment is dependent upon concentration or pH, then there may be an issue. So it's not just what the folks put on the process flow diagram. Take a critical look at that diagram to see if there's any potential. Anytime something connects together and mixes, there's a potential issue. Yeah. It's very efficient. It's very efficient. This is, isn't it? This company actually makes humidifiers, and they take the liquid and that's what they ship the humidifiers in. So you don't ever have to add water. Could happen. Oh, God. All right, here's another one. Now what? Could this be one unit? Whatever it is, it's not one unit. 2 units? No, maybe 3. Yeah.
The way it's laid out, a lot of times it's the way the generator lays their treatment system out that affects it. How they want to do it. One way it could be 1 unit, one way it could be 2 units, another way might be 3 units. So and that's a difficult thing on inspector to verify the units are right. You have to go out and look at what they submitted and make sure it fits what they actually have. And the diagrams here are always a lot easier to make sense of than the facility, right? Because it's over in the back corner all crammed togetger. They don't have any spacing like we have here.
Yeah, no. Or they give you some highly engineered, AutoCAD, set of drawings that, looks like the one-page how to build a space shuttle plan. That's their entire water balance system, and all you care about are 5 boxes and 3 lines on there. So again, you could always go back to the facility and say, you need to extract a couple of layers here. Yep.
Is flow equalization, is that a treatment process?
It does not appear to be, but when it says other cleaning acids, you're going to want which cleaning acids? Is it pre-combined as it's going into this tank, or do you have multiple waste streams that end up going into this tank? And there you have, are they being diluted?
And why? What's the intent of mixing them? What's happening? Maybe by mixing them all together, the pH goes up to 4, and then it can go into this tank. If it goes in at 2, which one of the waste streams might be, then it might be a problem on the tank, and they're not set up for that. So again, it's intent.
It doesn't have the equalization treatment, it has the other cleaning acids coming in.
Yeah, it could be. But that's part of the benefit of the flow chart is, it may raise questions that certainly you can ask. Say, well, what is this? Explain the process to me. You bet. All right, what can you treat in? I actually have that mug at home. What could you treat in? Can you treat in a tank?
Yes.
Yes. Can you treat in a container? Can you treat in a sump? Only chumps treat in sumps. How about a wet floor? Anyone go to that class on how to manage a wet floor? Isn't the bottom line answer, don't have one because there's no way to operate one in compliance? Pretty much. How about that? And they say, nah, there's no treatment going on in there. Well, number one, is your big concern their tiered permit? Very likely no. But they say, no, that's just non-hazardous rinse water. How do you know that's not quite accurate? Aggregate, rebar. How about that? Well, that's just shiny epoxy coating on the floor. Well, how come my toes are burning? That's a wet floor. We'll say, yeah, but we wash that down every day. That's all the drips we get, and it's, it drains over there, but, a couple times a day we hose it all in, and it goes over for treatment. That's a waste collection system, essentially, and that's not going to be right. How about that? That is an evaporator. All right, they used to, they bulldozed this place, but they took various circuit board wastes, some of the concentrated stuff, and they stuck it in the evaporator, flip the switch, water boils off, goes out the stack, along with a bunch of other crud, but it goes out the stack, leaving a residue that they then scoop out and dispose of the sludge. Very high metals, typically, pretty low pH. Is that okay for tiered permitting? Well, while we continue, homework for somebody, take a look through the flow chart. This would be aqueous waste with metals. Tell me if that falls under tiered permitting. It's an evaporator. And you're going to be looking at aqueous waste with metals. God, we're only on block 2. All right, while you guys are flipping through, basically what waste stream is it? 2A or 2B? All right, what is evaporation listed there? Evaporation's listed. All right, take a look at that picture. All that thing's doing is heating it up and driving the water vapor out the stack. Evaporation in tanks or containers, such as breathing and evaporation through vents and floating roofs, without the addition of pressure, chemicals, or heat other than sunlight, or, wait, I was reading upside down. Addition of sunlight, or ambient room lighting or heating. This is an evaporator. It's plugged into the wall. It's plugged in a 220.
It's cooking this stuff.
It's cooking this stuff, right? Does this fall under tiered permitting? No, it doesn't. Look at the box on 2A or 2A or 2B. Look at the box on 2A where it says evaporation. This thing is plugged into the wall. It has a heater. It's boiling off the water. It's not eligible for tiered permitting. Look at the box on 2A, or I'm sorry, 2B. Oh, I didn't even see it down. That's the problem with she had her arm over that one. See, that's the problem with doing this once a year. Evaporation. Yeah, PBR. Yeah. Well, correction. Apparently that's okay.
If it was a RCRA waste to begin with.
It was a RCRA waste to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah.
We really need to review this stuff before we... This is the first year I used that example. It really is. I will use it correctly next time. Yes, sir. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So let's assume I didn't screw it up, and they are properly under PBR. When you finally go evaluate this process, how clean does that thing look? Yeah, a couple of issues there, but I stand corrected. All right, let's, as we finish up here, now we're getting into the operational compliance, right? With the exception of my last screw up, you figure out the appropriate tier, you're filling out the paperwork. There's a lot of forms. You guys have copies of the forms in the book. There's a number of forms that make up the completed tiered permit application or notification for the application package, but there's a lot of other supporting information that the facility has to have. What gets submitted is one single facility page for the facility, regardless of how many tiers they fall under, regardless of how many units they have. There is one unit page per unit. They have one unit page. They have 3 units, 3 unit pages. And then however many of the tier-specific pages, CE, conditional authorized, or PBR pages, depending on what tier they fall under. For conditional authorization and PBR, the certification of financial assurance for closure costs. What do they have to keep available for review? Well, the process flow diagrams, plot plans, waste disposal records, copies of the sewer permit, copies of the air permits if necessary, the backup documentation for waste analysis, flow determination. They don't have to submit that with the application or with the notification. They just have to make sure that they keep it on site.